In the second half of this lesson, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at a couple of word problems. Initially, they give us some information and we may have to add some information to help us form the equation, or sometimes all they give us are words and we have to form the entire equation that's there. So the first problem says that a rancher has 300 meters of fencing material and he's going to make a rectangular corral, and that's going to be to hold his livestock, cows, pigs, sheep, goats, whatever he has. It says one of the sides is an existing wall and does not require any fencing. It says if two sides of the length are each x meters, show the area of the corral expressed in the following form. So basically what they're asking us to do is they're asking us to draw a model of this problem. So if I look at this particular problem, and if this is my wall here, then each of these sides is x. Now we know that the perimeter of this rectangular field is 300. So this total distance is going to be 300. So this length here has to be 300 minus 2x. It has to be the total distance of 300 minus these two sides, which are x, to give us 300 minus 2x. And the area is length times width. So the area in this case is going to be 300 minus 2x times x, which actually gives us 300x minus 2x squared when we multiply this out. So indeed, the equation they gave us actually models this problem. Now it says complete the square to determine the maximum possible area of this pen. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is rewrite this equation. It's going to be negative 2x squared plus 300x. And remember, when there's no constant term, it essentially means there's a zero there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to factor out a negative 2 from our first two terms. So that makes this negative 150. Well, half of negative 150 is negative 75. And if you square 75, you get 5625. So that's what we're going to add and subtract here. So we end up with negative 2, x minus 75 squared. And if you bring out the negative 5625, you have to multiply it by the negative 2 here, and that's going to give you 11,250, because 5625 times 2 is 11,250. And it asked us to determine the maximum area. Well, remember, the maximum quantity is always our Q value. So in this case, the maximum area is 11,250 meters squared. It says state the dimensions of the rectangle. Well, the width is going to be 75 meters because the x represents our width in our problem. Our length is going to be 300 minus 2x, or 300 minus 2 times 75. Well, 2 times 75 is 150, and 300 minus 150 tells us our length is actually 150. So if we state it, it's 75 meters by 150 meters as the dimensions of that particular path. Okay, the second question we're going to look at says, Ashley's been asked to find two numbers which differ by 8 and whose product is a minimum. Remember, anytime they say maximum or minimum, that means you're going to have to complete the square. So it says if x represents the smaller number, so we're going to say smaller number is represented by x, that means the larger number is going to be x plus 8, because these two numbers differ by 8. So if the smaller number is x, I have to add 8 to x to get my larger number. So if I actually take the product of these two numbers, x times x plus 8 is going to give me x squared plus 8x as my quadratic function. So now what I have to do is I have to actually complete the square on this particular situation. And I'm just going to put plus 0 there to indicate our constant. So we have to take half the middle term. So half the middle term is 4. You're going to square that. So that actually ends up giving us 16. So we're going to add 16 and subtract 16 in this question. So we're going to get y equals x plus 4 squared, because half the middle term is 4, minus 16, because that's the part that's going to move outside of our brackets. So it says determine the numbers that give you a minimum product. Well, to solve for x, we have to take the x plus 4 and equate it to 0. And when we solve for x, we found out that the one number is negative 4. Our other number was x plus 8. So negative 4 plus 8, plus 8 gives us positive 4. So our two numbers are negative 4 and positive 4. And there we go. The solution to two particular word problems. Remember, anytime they ask you for a maximum or a minimum in a question, that means you're going to have to complete the square to algebraically put this into general form. And then once you have it in general form, you can read off values of x, you can read off maximums or minimums, and you can solve your problems.